Today, very glad to go back. Just a note before we start, the session will be recorded, so just keep that in mind. So in 2015, the Rosenthal movement in South Africa heightened the call for the decolonizing of the higher education sector, with engineering being the heart of the national development and transformation. There's a great need for us to engage in conversation about access to knowledge and skill development. So just to give you context about the session we're having today. So the idea is for us to understand what decolonization is before we can discuss how it can be implemented or how we would decolonize education. So the EFFSC and Big Talk UCT are very glad to welcome our guest speaker today, the Forlist, former member of SRC, some call him the fire breather, Mr. Sinawo.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Sinawo Thambo, former Forlist and former SRC member as well. I'm currently the chairperson of the Economic Freedom Fighters Student Command in the province, and of course, as mentioned, a supposed fire breather. So, I'm going to be speaking on decolonization as a weapon of theory, right? Okay, let me try and continue. So, I'll be speaking on decolonization complete, right? Firstly, what I'll seek to achieve is to unpack what decolonization is, so we understand it as a weapon of theory and its relevance to academia. So, particularly to engineering and how it can be prioritized there, and how we can use it as a diagnosis as to how academia has been framed during the colonial period and where we can locate Africa in that context as well. So I'll start with decolonization as a weapon of theory, right? So initially, after receiving the brief, the invite from the faculty, students' council to speak on the issue, I must admit I was a little bit intimidated. So firstly, speaking on decolonial theory on its own is a daunting task, and understanding the complexities of a philosophy that seeks to completely restructure the status quo is one that is not only met with hostility, as we have seen, but also generally valid critiques as to how it can be applied in various centers of society and academia. Questions around how can decolonization be practicalized in fields that are underpinned by scientific thought, such as mathematics, sciences, and engineering, are views that are held alike and they are persistent. And commonly this comes from a narrow view of what decolonization seeks to achieve, as well as sometimes a poor grasp of the theory itself made by people who claim to subscribe to it. So I will attempt in this session to firstly outline decolonization, its nature and form as a weapon of revolutionary theory and progressive thought, and secondly, outline its relevance to the field of academia and how its praxis can be seen within the faculty and the outside world with regards to professions that relate to it. So decolonization, right, as a school of thought and methodology, seeks to undo the effects of colonial conquest. It is in colonial terms absolute substitution, a theory grounded on the principles that those in society who have been oppressed, the last, will substitute those who have been the benefactors and initiators of the colonial program, the first. It seeks to critically diagnose the effects of colonialism as an economic, theoretical, cultural, and intellectual, at a existential level as well. As a methodology, it exists across time and place. It is not constricted to particular contexts, but rather it is a theory that can be adapted to speak to particular nuances in contemporary society, particularly the social contradictions confronting former colonies, such as South Africa. It is an ever-developing tool of analysis and provides a guide to restructure society and the necessity of doing so. Understanding that colonialism was not merely a phenomenon on material dispossession, but rather reads the colonial movement as a context inspired by ideas and a particular perception of native society that is colonized. When it comes to the body of intellectual work, society development, colonial theorists such as Hegel, for example, locate the native outside of the development of history and intelligentsia. He coins Africa as a dark continent, and this is important to note as before the rollout of the colonial domination, the Enlightenment era in Europe brought about European society out of feudalism and into a place of ideas. And they were at the center of human development and existence. Once humanity is declared on the basis of the ability to think and therefore to be, notions of liberty, of the liberty of man, humanity amongst men are established. And then European society decidedly declares that then enslavement and oppression amongst man or humanity is inhumane and should be abolished. This is important because it is then here where one must ask the question as to why then enslave those the Europeans encounter when they venture to the colonies. In what category do they fall if their bodies are generative forces of enslavement? A large body of literature of work is established through the process of the voyages. The likes of Marco Polo, Jan van Riebeeck, Vasco da Gama, Halo by then have already verified the native societies outside of Europe. They have defined the native as a society without values, a society without customs and civil norms of government or education. The native is seen as an unproductive, unthinking, and is only useful for expendable labor, for the expansion of the imperialist notions and nations of Europe at the time. This is where now we can now argue that decolonization is a theory that comes in response to this historic development of humanity and not defines credible existence in terms of development. And then to bring this argument, of course, back home to academia, to the faculty, the importance of decolonization is that fields of academia are also established on these grounds. The very fabric of institutions of higher learning is education and educational methods that are primarily made up of Western bodies of work and serve to further entrenched ideals based on education as a generative force of capital and as one that furthers the argument of knowledge production being outside the capacity of African society. Academia is then located as being beneficial for society. Academia is located outside of being beneficial for society as a whole, but rather exists as cannon fodder for individualistic pursuits of success. Education then does not exist as a public good, but rather as a means of self-enrichment. So decolonization then challenges this and calls for the restructuring of this established order in order to serve the needs of the majority of the society and reflect the reality of that particular society as well, which it exists in. Institutions that, decolonization calls for institutions that reflect knowledge production and outputs that is in our case African. Projects, inventions, and research initiatives that center the oppressed in their objectives, their ideas, values, and aspirations for society. Institutions, faculties, course outlines, employment initiatives that understand the history of the country and the continent, and act as an active proponent that seek to undo these injustices at the level of knowledge production. So these institutions should then exist to fulfill and expand broad society and not as detached legacies of colonial conquest. That, I would argue, is the purpose of decolonization, not only in the faculty but in any institution at large across the world. So now I'll try and speak briefly on decolonization in the faculty of engineering, or in engineering generally in a sense. So it's basically onto the specifics of the matter. Understanding then that I'm not too well versed on the nitty-gritties of how the faculty functions and develops its content and what initiatives it conducts, I had to do a bit of research as to what exactly the field of academia, which is engineering, seeks to achieve at an academic and societal level. So the field, to be corrected if I'm wrong, deals with planning, conceptualizing, maintaining, and building structures within society. Arguably, engineering is a critical part of the industrial development of humanity, and it is without a doubt important. It fits into history as a solid measure of development of society, building within society, bridges, structures that may be host to a variety of sector needs, such as governments, libraries, and institutions. It is a field that has been used to measure the progress of societies against one another. An important intervention of decolonization here is then that, at a theoretical level, to knowledge of Africa's history and its independent development, the necessary structures and institutions of higher learning, switch systems and bridges that were developed in Africa pre the colonial moment. This acknowledgement by faculties of thought in the school of academia is important, as the West has gone as far as it discourages African development to the point of ludicrous contestations on the building of things like pyramids being built by aliens. So supposedly a sophisticated society, which is the European society, which has verified the native for existing in a very mystical realm, is now going further to argue, just to discredit Africans and whether they have the capacity for historical development, to accredit the development of things like pyramids to aliens. So it's very important to engage the history of engineering within the African context, put it in our curricula, and use the relevant case studies and examples of African society as to how historically Africa has built itself to serve its own values and needs. Secondly, the initiatives of the faculty under the theme of decolonization must absolutely serve the interests of South African society. Engineering, which is currently an extremely lucrative field, for the capitalist project and free market values is sadly a field that commonly serves private interests for profit. Along with us losing many skilled engineers to other countries due to remuneration packages, it then becomes important for us to motivate our graduates to firstly stay in South Africa and play contributive roles in developing our society and its socio-economic needs, with profit being a secondary objective amongst that. Engineers of our time, graduates of the faculty, must be able to address effectively the crisis of mud schools in the Eastern Cape, the crisis of rivers that separate villages from key social welfare institutions such as clinics and schools. Engineers of our time should be able to address the crisis of developing cost-considerate qualitative housing initiatives and provide alternatives to shack dwellings and RDP initiatives as well. It's a faculty and a field that must exist in grooming from the level of primary education, young engineers, equipping high schools from our townships to relevant materials and curricula by adopting them. This will speak to racially diversifying the engineer within our society, which is currently always predominantly dominated by the white man. The faculty that must then also continue in terms of the representation within those who teach to develop its undergraduate students, particularly those who are black, and ensure that their postgraduate aspirations are achieved. This will then ensure a diverse set of lecturers within the faculty and within the field in itself. So these are some of the pragmatic programs that can be run in terms of decolonization within the faculty that are predominantly based on the sciences and serve a decolonial purpose. To locate the faculty in the field within the socio-economic realities of South Africa, that ensure that progressively the last shall be first and will deconstruct epistemological, economic, and racial levels the current disparities within engineering that are informed by the segregationist values of apartheid and the dehumanizing programs of colonialism that locate Africa, the nation of Africa, outside of the process of development and the ability to develop in itself. So then decolonization to be effectively implemented, the introducing of course content that reflects African development, to dismiss the notion that Africa does not have a history of development, and critically reflecting on who teaches, how they teach, and how decolonization can be integrated into the fabric of the faculty. And also lastly, I'll also call for that decolonization to be effectively implemented will require those within the powers of the faculty who determine what is taught, who is accepted into the faculty, the guys that dictate the merits of acceptance themselves, to be open-minded. Many a time, faculties that exist have an old guard that is very resistant to the type of change decolonization seeks to achieve. This makes the work of decolonization and the task of progressive change very difficult, and always our views as decolonialists are viewed as an attack on the fabric of education itself and its values, which is false because it's a misunderstanding. Rather, it seeks to locate decolonization and locate those who are a majority within a society within the realm of knowledge production, within the realm of capacity to produce knowledge, to build and to develop. So the framing of an attack is an old conceptualization. Even when one attacks the values of capitalism, the alternatives that are brought forward are always verified as if the current modes of production are progressive. So engaging decolonial theory becomes important as well. So companies must never take my word for it. We must engage the histories of colonial society prior to conquest, and this will be very key to understand that actually we existed prior colonialism, we developed prior colonialism, and we deserve a place at the center of knowledge production and academia, especially in the engineering faculty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thambo, and I hope that everyone has a better understanding of what decolonization is, and specifically in the engineering industry and field. I think it's also very important to note that and justify why we invited him specifically here and not particularly an engineer. It is because in our field as engineering students or as engineers, the issue of decolonization and the impact of engineering on society is absent from our curriculum. So Mr. Thambo here has actually dealt with the issue, he's studied the issue, he's done investigations and research on the issue, and that's why we have him here specifically and not an engineer. So I know some of you might have a couple of questions now, so I'll be opening the floor to the first round of questions. So I'll take 4 questions and he'll respond and we'll take more questions after that.
So, I guess my question is not necessarily just to him, but more like to the House at large as well. In terms of his first point of saying that part of decolonizing, we need to sort of view the history of engineering in Africa. So looking at the fact that engineering sort of draws from various other fields, like physics, math, chemistry, stats, well, depending on like the type of engineering you do, how would the logistics of this work? Because it seems to me like for engineering to be able to fully do that, we need to also ensure that the same is happening in those other fields. So yeah, I guess I was just trying to think of how would we ensure that this actually happens effectively, because to just decolonize the engineering parts, which I don't even exactly know how we would necessarily separate them, that wouldn't be fully decolonizing it, if that makes sense. So how would we like go about this?
Any other questions?
So my question just speaks to the fact that the concept of the university, when brought to Africa, had a very specific purpose, and you touched on this in saying that most of the faculties draw their objective as generating capital. So how do we then move away from this sort of thinking to a point where we can do more than just function in a capitalist society as engineers?
I could like to ask you one question, like a recommendation. So, like from the look of when you look at our engineering faculty, so if, for example, our dean today or the engineering students, they could ask, what is the first step? Like, could you recommend, like, to our engineering faculty as the first step to take towards decolonization? Because when I look at our faculty, they are doing so much towards transformation, but transformation is not decolonization. So, like, if you want to decolonize the faculty, like, what is the first step that you should take? When us as EB Student Council, we thought the first thing is to go to the main stakeholders and tell them this is what decolonization means. But now, like, what could you tell management, like, to take as the first step?
Okay, thank you for the question. For the questions raised, I'd also like to further encourage more questions that are maybe even with contesting ideas to what I've presented as well. Because there are contestations to decolonial theory in itself and its practicalities. So I encourage as well colleagues to contest if they feel like they can, even what I've said here. So the first question was basically how do we ensure that other sectors that inform the faculty of engineering, such as the mathematics and the sciences, are also decolonized, because decolonization cannot happen in isolation. I think that's where you were heading as well. I think what we can do, right, is that we continue the engagement with nature first to understand the roots of all academia that has been developed in all institutions of higher learning. Right? So we're not going to tackle engineering as a sector that must be decolonized in isolation. Even sociology can't be decolonized in isolation. But what we can do is that there are social aspects that the sciences seem to not want to consider when developing their content in their curricula. And those social aspects must always be interrogated and included in those processes. When one develops or one teaches a particular course or teaches in a particular field, they must always consider that how does my work in this field influence the society in which I exist? So do not exist as a science or a field within the institution simply for the process of knowledge production, but what does that knowledge production do for our society as well? Because there are mathematics, for example, which are concrete sort of levels of academia, which decolonization does not contest, because decolonization is not saying we must scrap the existing forms of knowledge or what is being developed, but rather interrogate their roots and see how they can inform our society and move them away from being elitist projects. So the mathematics exist as concrete scientific sort of forms of knowledge, and those, the best we can do those is trace their roots and do away with the notion of us not having the capacity to develop math in itself as a concept that has been very deeply interested in producing knowledge. So including a social consideration in faculties and fields of academia that are rather concrete and scientific becomes important so that we ensure that academia serves society in itself. If we know that the level of math which is taught in university becomes particularly dense for students who perhaps come to the township and then they were proficient in math at the primary and high school level, when they arrive here, it come challenged with not understanding the concepts effectively. What then can we do about that? We can use our faculties as an institution that is a large amount of wealth, take our fields and our sciences to the communities themselves and to properly equip Black students. Because another form of decolonization is to ensure that the institution represents the majority of the people of the society. And when those who come to the institution come from the predominantly privileged schools, the ones who are most efficient in those spaces are usually white students because they come from a background that has properly grasped them with those politics. So to decolonize then the spaces and those who have access to that knowledge and those who have the capacity to continue that knowledge and not come to university, because there's a recycling process that happens with Black students, especially in these fields. We'll brag about the transformation levels in terms of representation, but that representation is not a representation that is permanent or one that seeks to find Black students graduating in those fields. We'll say the faculty has perhaps 50% Black students, but if those 50% of Black students graduate, they don't graduate because they come from a background that has failed to give them the necessary tools to be efficient in the institution. So decolonization also calls for representation. So I think that's something we can be able to do in sectors that inform engineering in itself. But then engineering as a more practical form of thought and knowledge is a school of thought that we can practicalize in our societies. So we can make interventions into the existence of Black people who live in shared communities. What are engineers thinking about that reality? What are engineers thinking about the reality of people who don't have bridges in rural areas? That's the practical side of engineering. And in the sciences, we can take the knowledge to the communities and integrate our society better, the majority of the people there. I don't know if I've been able to answer your profile indeed. So. And then the second question is, how do we move away from education being a generator of capital? I think this is an argument we made a lot. It was a primary argument we made from Rose Maswal and Fields Maswal, is that the beginning of education being a generator of wealth or being a protagonist of wealth starts at the mere point at which education is commodified. So when access to education in itself comes in the form of money, then it becomes success which breeds the desire for more money. I'm here at the institution, I'm paying fees, education itself is a price tag. So when I leave, it's another commodity that I have in my hand, and I use it to further commodify myself, and to further expand my own pursuit for a lavish lifestyle, rather than using it as something that can pragmatically change society. So how we can move away from education or our fields being generators of capital and us primarily focusing to be agents of capital is that firstly, let's do away with making education itself a commodity. Once we deal with that process, then we can build ethical sort of students, ethical proponents of academia that understand that I do not have to go to America, I must not prioritize going to perhaps another country so I can get paid better for my skills in building, in terms of building and creating society, but rather I can accept that the methods or the means that I get paid within South Africa are enough for me to sustain myself and rather use my skills to expand my society and equip further society. So just build a socialist sort of ethic within academia and people who are in academia is how we can start the process of moving away from education being a generator of capital and inspiration to further myself in terms of capital as well. And then the question on what is the first step to decolonize the faculty, we must first start engaging on what is wrong with the faculty itself. So that's what becomes important. The mere fact that we are here is a step in itself. We are diagnosing that there is a problem within our academic circles. There's a problem of representation, there's a problem of our education not speaking to our lived reality. So the first step is spreading that knowledge and understanding those crises as well. The second step is changing our curriculum, something we've been advocating for since 2015 and something that's been advocated for even before us as well. The likes of book in terms of language use and what we are teaching in our institutions of higher learning as well. The likes of your financials tell us that we are people that produce knowledge. Let's include our knowledge systems within those frameworks that currently exist in deconstructing who is at the center of knowledge production and understanding that we are active proponents of knowledge production as well. So we must not undermine the importance of thinking around the problems of our society, and we have a fetish of wanting a material step. The mere fact that we are engaged with the ideas of decolonization is very progressive. And from that, we're going to diagnose our situation, think further about our situation, and come to solutions that will be effective rather than making mistakes, rather than taking a solution-oriented approach and making mistakes and giving the existing system time to adapt to all of our strategies without really thinking about what we're doing. So doing without not really considering what we're doing, what's the problem, without knowing what the problem, but try to fix the problem without knowing what the problem really looks like. So I think the first step is this, it's a very progressive step as well. So further, we must then further arguments for involvement in curricula or African perspectives. And the last question is, has there been any progress since 2015 in terms of the decolonial project at UCT? I'd say definitely so. There's been a lot of progress. There's, at least we find that academic institutions are integrating themselves. They are trying to sort of add at a transformative level different ideas into how the education sector can speak to socio-economic needs. So there's been progress in terms of people accepting that there is a problem. But then the issue now what we need to do is to develop ideas that are going to address the problem as well. So the progress is more on an ideas in terms of basis, but the practical realities are not really changed. We know students are still getting excluded at UCT, financially excluded because they are not proficient academically as well. So us understanding the problem is the first step as well. So the progress has been made since 2015 in terms of at least the institution understanding that it has a problem of racism, there's a problem of limiting people's access in terms of their capacity to pay for things. So that progress has been made. Now we must become more solution oriented while continuing to think about the issues of society. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll be taking another round of hands.
Perhaps this is more of a suggestion than a question, because I think our focus would be mainly on changing the curriculum rather than looking at ways in which we can make sure that everyone has access to them. By decolonization, and understand that we're saying the previously disadvantaged must now have access to what they were denied previously, am I correct? So there are mechanisms which are put in place to ensure that the previously disadvantaged do not have access to this. Firstly, to your NBT. There are people who will do well in their metric, but because of the NBT, they'll have to go to Stellenbosch. We have seen that, and we know people who have to do that. So now, what do we do in such a case? We are not saying cancel the NBT or we must do in a different way. What we can do is ensure that all schools, high schools, at least do have NBT, where when you go and write NBT. Because you find that some people have to travel for 2 hours in order for them to write the NBT. Now that ensures that some people do have access to this and others do not. Sitting in this venue, there are people who are taught what is to come in the NBT, while others were not taught. So that alone is again a sign of we are having mechanisms in place that ensure that not everyone is granted space in this institution. So now what do we do with that? Also, what mechanisms do we have in place to ensure that the previously disadvantaged do graduate and do leave the space with the degrees? Because what happens is you fail the course, you get 48%, there's no supplementary exam for that course. Now, you lose your funding. We know very well that we are on bursaries here, and okay, there are bursaries, fortunately, and luckily there are bursaries. Now you lose the bursary, and when you pay the course, they tell you that, look, you'll have to pay for that course using your own money, knowing very well that you don't have that money. You end up in debt. Yes, there are crisis funds, but I doubt many people here in this venue know how to access those funds and know where to go with those funds. So now, what do we do with those? Because understanding that some things were just there in the past to ensure that certain things do not happen, but part of change is to scrap those things if they don't have reason. Like the supplementary exam. It has been existing, and we are seeing that it's no use not having it. Now, what do we do? Do we call for a complete change in that, or do we continue that? Well, part of continuing would be conforming to the mechanisms that were put in place previously to ensure that we don't graduate or leave this way. Thank you.
No, mine is to say, you said yourself that the university itself was part of the machinery of the colonial project, right? And so now, within that process, there were knowledges and technologies that were excluded and put in the periphery, not placed like in a mainstream academic project. Now, how then do we integrate those knowledges and those technologies and put them at the center of academia now, with the understanding that those knowledges have been in the periphery for so long, and some of them have even died. We have languages that are basically dead, as in now. So now, where do we get the people first to teach those technologies, and how do we put them in the center of the academic?
I just have a few statements. It's not really opposing anything. It's more about the basic education system before we get to university. It's like the moment I got here and looked at the first course that I took, I'm looking, oh my goodness, how the hell did I actually do this? This is actually really difficult. And the problem is back in high school, they taught us ways in mathematics that if you see this, do this. And never made you or taught you how to think about a problem and actually think it abstractly how to get there. There's always a thing of monkey see, monkey do. Engineering in a nutshell is just about being able to think about something and actually think for yourself how to approach it instead of thinking about what did the previous bloke before me do. It's a large step to think about that way, and it's actually really difficult, and that's why there's such a high fail rate, is because it's hard to think that way. I'm pretty sure everyone here has had that problem about when they sit there and I have no clue how to do this, and it's just about taking a step back and asking for help along to peers to get that far, because high school education is by far the least helpful thing in this planet when it comes to university. And what you said earlier, I think it's actually a really noble idea to sort of bring the idea of making engineers, or not making them, but more bring upon the thought of telling engineers, like, look at the positive things you can do for this country. And I think that's a wonderful idea. And if we could sort of provoke that train of thought in high school maybe, about like, if you start to become an engineer from this age, look at how you can help with the communities. You know, it's a hard thing because like, in the EBE faculty, sometimes I sit there at 2 o'clock in the morning with my web assignment, like, oh God, I have this thing to do now. I don't really have time to think about like, oh, what I could be thinking to help the communities. But back in high school, you have oodles of time, man. And if you just, in high school, I feel if we sort of train that sort of train of thought about like, look what you can do, and then maybe we can actually inspire some new engineers from the groundwork. Instead of like, because we don't have time to sort of formulate new ideas, you're just trying to get this course done, get this information into your head, just to figure out the next semester. It's like, at the end of the day, your engineering degree doesn't mean anything unless you can apply it. And I feel like if we apply it towards noble goals, we can actually achieve something in this country.
Okay, good.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions?
Part of decolonizing engineering in making studying more accessible to people. I'm curious because finance is a way of sort of borrowing from going to university, obviously. But if we were to make it a lot more accessible, how would universities cater for everyone who can study now?
So the question is, accessibility to higher education was raised earlier, and finances are a way to kind of make sure that people don't access higher education. So, just correct me if I'm wrong, your question is, if then these people are catered for, how can universities be financed?
Yeah, it's more relevant. It's more, you already got so many applications, so you can spot it. Now there's a whole lot more people
Okay, so I mean, the question is, UCT can only cater for 27,000 people, or if we want to bring 50,000, what happens? Okay, so that's the question. Napo, I think you have your hand up.